Mike, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Good to talk to you, Zach. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. So when I was told to read a book in school, I would never read the actual book. I would do Spark Notes. So give us the Spark Notes version of kind of the process in order to get the final product that we all saw last night with the NFL schedule.
Yep, those were called Cliff Notes back when I was in school. Yes, the Cliff Notes version of the NFL schedule is each of the 272 games have some value, some more than others, as you can imagine. So put the ones with the most value in the biggest national television windows. It's obviously good for our media partners, but it's also good for the fans. We should make sure that they can see all the games they want to see. And obviously, it's sports. None of us know anything, and the crystal ball isn't always clear. So you make your best guess here in May, and 4 months from now, the season starts, and all of a sudden, your best laid plans might take a detour, and you got to adjust. And if you do, that's what flexible scheduling is for. Or the Saturday afternoon TBD pools, or CBS and Fox adjusting their regionalization maps. We're trying to get the best games in the best windows, get MFV, maximum fan value, out of every single one of these games, while also not crossing that line of competitive fairness. We don't want any team to look at their schedule on release day and say, how could you have done this to us? We're dead and buried. We can't compete. No coach will say that, obviously, and no team believes that, but we shouldn't even be at that point. So maximize viewership, maximize engagement, maximize reach, minimize team competitive inequities. And if a team caught, the short straw for whatever reason, bad luck moves around. Hopefully it doesn't fall on you the same way year after year.
And also, let's be this, what we think we know now could change and age very differently the first few weeks of the season, because there's so many teams you have high expectations for that don't meet them, or in a more positive way, there's a lot of teams that we look at and we say, oh, how could they be any good with the schedule that they get? And they end up being a lot better than what we thought. All righty, Mike North here with us. Let's start with the first game, Eagles and Cowboys, to open up the season for the Super Bowl champs. For the Eagles, right, you knew they were going to be home. You could have picked the Cowboys, which you did. Bears, Rams, Broncos, Giants, Lions, Raiders, Commanders. Those were the potential home opponents. Why did you think the Cowboys were the right team to start off the season for the defending champs?
Yeah, every one of those options you just listed would have been perfectly fine, right? Kickoff has a kind of built-in floor in terms of fan interest and viewership. It's the first game after 4 months of us sitting around waiting for the season to start. Me, and 9 friends could probably play the Eagles and get 20 million viewers, but I think they'd rather watch somebody, a little better, something with a storyline. And again, you probably could have leaned into the Rams. They gave the Eagles all they could handle in the playoffs last year. The Bears arguably won the offseason with the new coach and some of the additions they made on the offensive line. Washington adding Debo would probably change the dynamic coming back on an NFC Championship game rematch. They all would have worked. What you've got in your hand, though, is 2 Cowboys-Eagles games, and for the last couple of years, we've been a little unlucky. You're talking about top 5, top 8, top 10 viewership potential games every year, and we've waited maybe just a little too long to deploy, at least one end of the Cowboys-Eagles series. Last year we had it in Week 17. It was going to be in a big Fox 425 doubleheader window going to 100% of the country. We actually had to flex out of it and move it back to 1 o'clock. So one way to guarantee that you're getting, at least maximum value out of at least one end of the Cowboys-Eagles series, put it in Week 1, everybody undefeated, hope springs eternal, and the Eagles fans are going to love unfurling a banner in front of the Cowboys.
Yes, there's going to be a lot of camera shots on Jerry Jones during that, no doubt about it. I will say this. I don't think there's ever a wrong answer for the NFL when it comes to the schedule. Like, you could give me a great game early, and some people will say, oh, why are you giving us such a marquee matchup in a Week 1 or a Week 2? You're going to tune into that game whenever they play it. With that being said, the following week, you have a Super Bowl rematch, Eagles-Chiefs. Why go with that Week 2? Because some people will say, probably rather see that in the middle of the season or later on in the season.
Yeah, the truth is the Chiefs have a spectacular schedule this year. When you just look at their opponents, the Eagles game is great, obviously, but Dallas, Detroit, Washington, Baltimore, Buffalo, there's so many good Chiefs games. Something's got to go early, something's got to go middle, something's got to go late. One of the earliest decisions we made actually was kind of anchoring the back end of the Chiefs schedule with that Broncos game on Christmas. Knew we were doing 2 games on Netflix, 1 on Amazon. Obviously, all the focus is on the pretty new games on Netflix, and that Beyonce concert last year. I'm sure they're going to try to do something big and fun again this year. So you wanted to make sure Amazon, wasn't an afterthought for the 3 streamed games on Christmas. So kind of anchored Denver, Kansas City at the back end. We knew they were going to go to Brazil against the Chargers at some point. That's Week 1, and then you sprinkle through the middle so many good options. I think on Philly KC, play it early in the season, it's a Super Bowl rematch. Everybody's looking back to last year, looking back to that great game for the Eagles at least. You put it in the middle. Okay, I'm sure it's still relevant, but maybe it's not the Super Bowl rematch anymore. Now it's, what are they this year? And then if you put it at the end, like we said earlier, you run the risk of maybe waiting a little too long to get maximum fan value out of the Super Bowl rematch. So get it in early. It's a Super Bowl rematch. Play it late. Maybe it's a Super Bowl preview,
Mhm.
but you also run the risk of maybe somebody not having the season they hoped, somebody getting injured, one of the quarterbacks being out. God forbid Taylor and Travis break up. I mean, you run a lot of risks the longer you wait. So get it in early, get it in as a Fox doubleheader. They're going to be thrilled to bookend their season with that as their first 425 window.
I could already hear the people, the authors, already typing away at their keyboard. See, Taylor Swift, she does control the NFL.
Don't
She
even
does
say
make the
word.
schedule.
Don't even speak it into existence.
So you mentioned Christmas Day, right? The NBA used to be synonymous with Christmas Day. I used to always laugh when years ago people would say, the NBA is closing in on the NFL. The NFL is king and it always will be king. But man, you guys hit this out of the park on Christmas Day. You have Broncos Chiefs at night. Middle of the day or early afternoon, you have the Lions and the Vikings. And then you do have right before that the Cowboys and the Commanders. First off, do you feel like now the NFL is Christmas Day? And then also, was it intentional to go all rivalries on those games in division?
Yeah, I'll answer your second question first. The rivalry games late in the year, like we said, it's sports. None of us know anything. But one thing you can usually count on is those division games matter late in the year. Somebody's going to be playing for something, and even if one of the teams is, mathematically eliminated from playoff contention, if your season's over, the next best thing you could do is ruin your division opponent's season. Think about the Lions going into Lambeau a couple of years ago, game 272, and knocking them out of the playoffs. How many times have we seen a team needing a win to make the playoffs and getting beat by a division opponent that had nothing, quote unquote, nothing to play for? So division games down the stretch. I think Howard Katz, who ran this process for 20 years. He's retiring at the end of this year. Among his many legacies is going to be our strong preference for division games late in the year in big national windows. Even if we don't get lucky and have, two 12-4 teams, those division games are going to matter. So absolutely, yes, division games down the stretch, big national windows feels like a good bet for us. As to the NFL playing on Christmas, look, I think the fans have spoken, right? They vote with their remotes. They tell us what they care about. And I remember, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, we had like a Broncos Rams game on Christmas Day, both going nowhere, both, I think, on backup quarterbacks. I think Baker Mayfield might have actually
off the
been
street.
doing his 1 month stint. And the game was like 51-3, and it did 23.5 million viewers. That kind of tells you that as big as we can be, maybe on Thanksgiving, and we're going to test that this year with those 3 really good Thanksgiving games, I think we've got a shot to be that big on Christmas too. So there's room for everybody in the sports industry. The NBA had a record-setting Christmas Day last year for their games, so there's room for both of us. But I think we've proven if we can play on a Wednesday, I think we're going to play on every Christmas, and I think you can get used to 2 or 3 games every December 25th for us, and division games do kind of make sense on that date.
Get into Thanksgiving. The one game out of the entire schedule that I just said, the NFL really knows what they're doing. 4:30, you have all these families together. You put the Chiefs where either you love the Chiefs because you love what they've done and they won, or you can't stand them because they've cost your team's championships and you're trying to chase them. And then you get the most polarizing team in the Dallas Cowboys. Salute to you guys of the NFL for putting Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, all credit there goes to Hans Stroder. He's the EVP of media distribution, handles our media deals, handles the scheduling process. And kind of early in the process, when we took a look at the 272 matchups, you could tell there was a lot of quality in there this year. There was some really good high-end stuff. We talked about all the great Chiefs games, just the way the divisional rotations work. The NFC East rotated into the NFC North. Maybe more importantly, the NFC North rotated into the AFC North. So you talk about Green Bay, Mini, Detroit, playing Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincy. Like all those sound like football games. That's a famous Howard Katz quote. Sounds like a football game. There was a lot of them this year. So you could really afford, if you wanted to pull out some of the very best right off the top and move them into windows where normally we don't go quite that big. So Hans had the idea very early in the process. He asked me what I thought. I told him absolutely not. No way. Terrible idea. But he was pretty convicted. He talked to David Burson over at CBS and just kind of teased him a little bit about it. And, hey, what would you think? What's David Burson supposed to say? You're going to give me Kansas City, Dallas on Thanksgiving? Yes, please. So we brought it to the commissioner. He told us to give it a run, take a look at it. Didn't commit right away. Just wanted to see what it would look like. Could you take a game like KC Dallas, put it on Thanksgiving, and knowing that you're doing so probably means you got to put a game like Green Bay, Detroit, the window before it, right? You can't really tell Fox, oh, hey, you didn't get a juicy apple. We gave a big juicy apple to CBS that day. And same thing to NBC. If you're going to go that big at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, you better be willing to go that big at 8 o'clock and still have something good left for Friday for Amazon on Black Friday. So it was a trickle down, and the commissioner kind of challenged us. Can you put those games in those windows and still build out a good Sunday night, a good Monday night, a good Thursday night, good Sunday afternoons, good international games, minimize 3-game road trips, move buys around, rest disparity, everything that it goes into a good schedule? Could you do it with your really best stuff on Thanksgiving? And I think we landed in a pretty good place, and we're really going to test the ceiling here. Hans used the phrase, take the Ferrari out of the garage. I think that's what we're doing on Thanksgiving this year.
So let me ask you this, because you can't always predict what's going to happen as Mike North is with us. So the Browns, right, we know how much of an intrigue Shedeur Sanders is, but you don't know when he's going to get on the field. Does that at all cross your mind? Maybe if the Browns, like you look at them, probably not expect to be that great this year. Maybe you save like a good game late just in case they hand the baton later on in the season to Shedeur Sanders. Does that play any intrigue or any factor into the Browns schedule?
It's hard to give a look at a, 5th round draft pick and try to build a schedule around a team that, didn't have the season that they wanted last year. It's impossible for us to know, is he going to play? Heck, is he going to make the roster, right? Like, none of us know anything. That one's a tough one. We had enough uncertainty with Aaron Rodgers. Will he not? We didn't really factor Shedeur in. He made for, unfortunately for him, it made for pretty good drama and pretty good television on draft day. But I don't think we could really, roll the dice and guess when Shedeur might be playing for the Browns if he even makes the team. So no thought on that. We joke about Taylor Swift. No thought on Taylor Swift. But yeah, half an eye on Aaron Rodgers. None of us know as we sit here today. So kind of tried to play it down the middle. If we knew he was playing, if he had signed a week ago, I imagine the Steelers' week 1 game would probably be on national television. It'll probably be in prime time somewhere. So as much as we do. But if he does come back, certainly that Packers-Steelers game in week 8 on Sunday Night Football gets even more interesting.
Yeah, just wondering. I heard what you just said in terms of Rodgers, and you don't know. I think most of us assume he's going to go to the Steelers. When you have a player, right, potentially playing for a new team, does that make it more appealing to have him go up against his old team in week 1 and just say, hey, if that's a storyline, great. If not, Steelers, Jets, still you have 2 passionate fan bases going up against one another in week 1 of the season.
Look, at worst case, it's, Justin Fields going against his former team. At best, it's Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers going against that former team. So there's storylines abound. It's week 1. Steelers, Jets still sounds like a football game. I don't think that was one where we thought, oh my God, we absolutely have to put it in national television window. But maybe that Packers-Steelers game probably deserved that treatment. You put that on a Sunday at 1 o'clock with 8 or 9 other games going on, and then Aaron comes back and decides to play for the Steelers in his first game against the Packers, it's going to get a little buried. It's going to get a little lost. At best, we're going to get it to 30-40% of the country. Maybe if we'd have put it in the, double-header week with CBS and Fox both having national games in week 15, it's going to imbalance, what we're trying to do between CBS and Fox. If one of them is Aaron Rodgers against the Packers, like what's that other one got to be? So conscious about where that game might have fallen, but it's still Packers-Steelers. It still sounds like a football game. It's still a good Sunday night game, regardless of who's playing quarterback for the Steelers. They've played their way into national television. They're not signing a free agent their way into national television. Never had a losing record, that coach. Always playoff relevant down the stretch. I think we can feel pretty good about Packers-Steelers Sunday night of week 8. We'll feel a little better about it if Aaron's there.
Absolutely. Last thing I'll ask you, because this was asked to me yesterday when all these games were leaking out, and I said that it isn't unfair, but some people will say, oh, the Vikings back-to-back weeks, they're in Dublin and then they're in London. How did that come about? And I think I read somewhere that you said today that the Vikings actually were more on board with it than anyone could have thought.
Yeah, there was nothing done that surprised the Vikings on schedule release day. Started relatively early in the process. Once we knew the home teams for the international games, I reached out to all their potential visiting opponents and said, look, you can see the schedule. You know the Steelers are hosting a game in Dublin. You know you go to Pittsburgh this year. It's possible you might go to Ireland with the Steelers. You can see the schedule. You know the Browns are hosting a game in London. You visit the Browns this year. It's possible you might go to London to play the Browns this year. And the commissioner said, oh, you think they'll ever double them up? And I said, absolutely not. No chance. But I called them. I talked to the Vikings and I asked them. And they went from intrigued, open-minded, to willing, to frankly eager. I think if you talk to the Vikings, their words, not mine, but I think they're probably looking at it as, you got to go to Pittsburgh and Cleveland this year. Those two games may well have been scheduled in December, in the snow, outdoors, cold weather, hostile environment, as the Vikings are fighting for a wild card spot. Here you get to take two of those potentially, cold weather, hostile environment road games, get them out of the way, get them in early, get them on a neutral field. I think Coach knew exactly what he was doing when he had everybody kind of shift their mindset from willing to eager. And once they were willing to innovate with us a little bit, we were certainly willing to try something. First time team playing two games on the road internationally, two different countries, maybe with an eye towards this in the future. If we think about playing in, I don't know, the UAE somewhere or the Middle East, might somebody go to Europe 1 week and then continue on from there instead of having a ping pong back and forth or send two teams on long trips? So always open-minded, always trying new stuff. Kudos to the Vikings for being willing to give it a shot. We're all going to learn a little something and see what we do moving forward.
So you do all these interviews today, Mike North. The schedule comes out last night. Like, when you get a chance to breathe today, what's like the celebratory meal that you have?
Probably grab Chick-fil-A on the way home. That's always a good celebration. It's interesting. This whole process, as you know, has become a lot less of just, oh, the schedule came out. Now it's 3 or 4 days of breadcrumbs, a day of giving it to the teams, a day of giving it to the networks, a day or two of everybody reacting to it. More than anything, I think we're reacting to everybody's social media posts about their schedule releases. Today's fun because, we gave the schedules to the teams on Tuesday, and we gave the schedules to the networks on Wednesday. And at that point, they were all just reacting to their own schedules. Then last night, the whole schedule comes out. Now they see everybody else's, and now they almost have to react because, yes, we were happy with what we had, but now that I see what that guy got, now I'm less happy, and now I have so it's always that constant reevaluation. I was happy, but now I'm less so. It's a zero-sum game, right? Anything that's good for ESPN is bad for NBC. Anything that's good for the Jaguars is bad for the Texans. So it's a balancing act. Everybody's probably just a little disappointed today. It's probably right where we should be. Nobody should be really that mad, and nobody should be too happy. We shouldn't give everybody everything they want, and we shouldn't give anybody really nothing. So everybody gets something, nobody gets everything.
He's the NFL VP of Broadcast Planning and Scheduling. He is Mike North. Mike, always appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Good to see you again. Take care, Zach.